tax regime, now the default option, do you see the government taking further steps in this budget to simplify personal taxation? Or will both regimes continue to coexist meaningfully?
So every year when this budget comes in, there are high expectations by the individual salaried class. Also, a lot from the industry that at least on the personal tax side, the government should do some bit of a rationalization. In the last budget 2025, we did see a vast changes that had happened, so as to say increasing the limits for taxation in the new tax regime. Plus, there were slab rate revisions that had happened, effectively meaning that income up to say 12 lakh 75,000 was getting a zero tax at that. Now see, already government had done lot many changes last year. So at least in 2026 budget, I do personally feel that there will not be those kind of path breaking or a huge sort of a change, because government also doesn't have that kind of a kitty within their kind of availability. But broadly, we still do feel there could be certain changes at least in the new tax regime, so as to say they may introduce some bit of deductions which are structurally kind of driven by the employer. So the government may want to bring in that within that 1.5 lakh sort of a limit, which is there under the Chapter 6A or ATC kind of a regime. So that is one thing that we kind of definitely see. At least another popular aspect is on the senior citizens or small savings scheme, wherever we sort of invest and put in money into the bank deposits. There also there is a vast majority of individuals who are saying that you should increase that deduction by at least some points, in the sense that currently under 80 TTA it is 10,000, and under 80 TTB, which is available for senior citizen, it is say 50,000. So people are kind of considering that this should be increased. So overall, in nutshell, yes, there will be some changes that are expected, but not vast majority of changes, because already that had happened under 2025 budget.
Alright, so there is an additional question. Is there scope in this budget for further rationalization of personal income tax slabs or surcharge structures to other inflationary pressures on middle income taxpayers?
So as I said, new tax regime, I do not see there will be a sort of a rate rationalization per se. Yes, on the surcharge side, there could be certain tweaks that the government may want to bring in, because of the fact that there are, like, you have to tackle the inflationary pressures. But broadly, I do not feel from a rate changes perspective there will be much to kind of address. But yes, there are demands from the industry that maybe say 1 or 2% surcharge may be reduced, or education says they can look at. But honestly, like, whether that will see light of the day is something that one has to wait on 1st of February.
All right. So beyond rate changes, can taxpayers expect meaningful relief through higher standard deduction limits, enhanced exemptions, or simplified compliance for salaried individuals?
So you have raised two important points in this question. So one is, of course, on the enhancement of standard deduction. Well, yes, this is one area that can see some tweaks. I'm not calling out the old tax regime, because old tax regime, any which ways, we are not seeing any change in the recent few years. But yes, in the new tax regime, the enhancement of standard deduction was, say, from 50 to 75,000 that had happened a few years back. So it may get further increased by say 25,000 or so. We might see that under the new tax regime, the standard deduction may increase by say 1 lakh. That is one area where we are definitely seeing some things, and as I called out, some of the employer driven sort of deductions may find place under the new tax regime, because otherwise there is a sort of gaps that are happening. Why I'm saying employer driven deduction? Because that specifically do not call for additional proofs. Say when we talk about provident fund, you are doing it structurally through the employer, and that's how you kind of can, you do not need to furnish additional proofs for that. So that's how at least that deduction may find place. NPS, any which ways we see there is a difference. 14% deduction by the employer contribution is allowed under the new tax regime versus 10% which is there in the old tax regime. So these things, like two things as we discussed, some bit of a tinkering on a increase in the standard deduction we can see in the new tax regime, along with some of the introduction of Chapter 6A deductions in the nature of structured employer contribution that we can find in the new tax regime.
Okay, fine, sir. So one more question. How do you assess the impact of increased digitization and pre-filled returns on ease of compliance for individuals? And has it genuinely reduced friction or introduced new complexities?
See, when we saw in the last few years the budget speech by the finance minister, she had clearly promised that there will be changes and specific focus of the government on the digitization and ease of compliance. Now, in that direction, there have been some series of steps that the government took. So it was in the line of earlier there was like 26 AS that has been kind of enhanced further. Now what we are seeing is two kind of important forms and those reports that are auto-generated and available under the income tax portal, which are AIS and TIS, that is annual information statement and tax information statement. So these definitely contain a lot many details about the income taxpayer, about the incomes that they have earned during the year, which might generally get missed in the sense if the individual is not having those statements readily available, plus the taxes that have already been deducted on that. In that light, whatever structural changes that have happened by virtue of introduction of these digitized income tax forms, certainly it has eased the compliance burden on the individual. Why I'm saying, because nowadays the income tax return you can file it online with great amount of ease. You need not punch in each and every data that say at least 50-60% of the information is already available and pre-filled in the income tax return, which greatly has the kind of saved the time of the individual. But at the same time, one important aspect that an individual and the taxpayer should notice, that these digitization come with some of the rider, in the sense that you need to check whether these details are correctly populated or not. If there are additional sort of gaps that are there, or one income getting reported twice, I mean that can happen with anyone. So those things have to be kind of called out, and those changes have to be kind of introduced or intimated timely to the government, so that these are kind of carried out in the AIS TIS. Otherwise, what may happen, that the same amount can get taxed twice in your income tax return. So yes, I would sum it up saying that yes, it has increased ease for the individuals from a compliance standpoint, but at the same time you should be mindful of the changes, and then just take a note that if there are certain errors, point that out. Just don't kind of keep a closed eye on that. Otherwise, you may land up in trouble, in the sense that the same income getting twice tax. So that's the overall kind of ease that the government has done.
All right, so here we are at the last question of our interview. So in one sentence, can you say which category of individual taxpayers is likely to benefit the most from the personal tax proposals in the budget, and why?
So again, very important question. See, I would call it maybe from an individual tax perspective, the government may want to give some impetus on the senior citizens. Senior citizens are the likely population which I see may get some more sort of a benefit in this budget, given the fact that like the amount of medical expenditures are increasing, and they have to put in more on their health budget and healthcare. So maybe some bit of additional sort of a deductions may be given to the senior citizens. And also the limits for their investments, if whatever interest that they earn, that might also get exempted. So this is one category where I do feel that the government may want to do some more and kind of win their sort of a confidence further. Another bit is on the women's side, yes, because again, as we say, our women kind of an empowerment, and then government is already doing a good amount of work to put in some money in the hands of the women who want to become entrepreneurs, in the sense giving them easy facility for loans and all, and rationalized sort of a payment schemes for those loans. So I think these are the two categories of individuals, say senior citizens and women, where I do feel that this budget 2026 will have something to bring them and make them kind of be happy and cheerful about.
And thank you so much for talking to us. That was a wonderful insight regarding union budget. And thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, and thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.